So in the discourses of the Buddha, it is said that the Buddha said, "The wise train the mind to give complete attention to one thing at a time, here and now. Those who follow me must be always mindful, their thoughts focused on the Dharma day and night." So this is what we've come to Sesshin for, to practice just that, this focusing on one thing at a time, what's happening right here, right now. This word Dharma is a koan in and of itself. What is the Dharma? And then to find this Dharma, we come to Zen practice. But then there's a whole nother koan right there. What is Zen? What is Zen? This is a question I've been asking myself a lot lately. And recently I've really just come down to this simple idea that Zen, the actual word Zen, means meditation. So it's a Japanese word that is the same word in Chinese, which is Ch'an, which is the same in Sanskrit, which is dhyana, and which is the same in Pali, which is jhana. So all those words are the same word, and they all really just mean meditation. Though we're gonna pick apart jhana a little bit later. So our practice, whenever we're confused about what is Zen, from my perspective, and everything that I'm going to say today is my experience, my perspective. So other people could see it quite differently. But we're doing meditation, and it's not zazen, which is seated meditation. It's Zen meditation, meaning always meditation. On the cushion, off the cushion, driving, showering, pooping, brushing our teeth, eating, rock climbing, everything. So there's so many teachings. You can look at the Abhidharma of Buddhism, which is thick, and the many discourses. And again, I just want to bring this idea that eventually the Buddha was doing all these different practices, and then he just sat down for 7 days or so, 6-7 days, and in the early morning woke up, or opened his eyes, saw the morning star, and had a deep realization of emptiness, and had his big deep enlightenment experience, which he had probably had many smaller ones before that, but that was the big one. So the last two aspects of the Noble Eightfold Path are sati and samadhi. Sati is mindfulness, and samadhi, we're just going to leave as well, I'll say a little bit about samadhi, but we're going to get it. I'm actually going to talk about samadhi a lot in a little bit. But samadhi is often translated as concentration, but it's a lot more than that. Unified mind, unified heart mind. So the Buddha continues, whatever is positive, what benefits others, what conduces to kindness or peace of mind, those states of mind lead to progress. Give them full attention. Whatever is negative, whatever is self-centered, what feeds malicious thoughts or stirs up the mind, those states of mind draw one downward. Turn your attention away. So this actually reminds me of the story of Master Huineng, which many of you have heard many times. Huineng was the sixth Chinese ancestor, the sixth ancestor of Zen. After Bodhidharma introduced the practice of meditation in China. And so here in the 7th century, the 5th Chinese ancestor, Master Huineng, was seeking a successor within his monks. And so he put out a contest. Who can come up with the best poem? So his leading student at the time, Xin Shui, I don't know how to actually pronounce that. I don't speak Chinese, but that's my best effort. Shinshui, wrote a poem on the south corridor wall of the monastery. And the poem goes like this: "The body is the Bodhi tree. The mind is like a bright mirror stand. At all times we must strive to polish it and must not let dust collect." So this is a brilliant poem, really. There's a lot of pieces to it. But as many of you already know, this is not the poem that won the contest. But it doesn't mean it wasn't incredibly important and useful. And so we'll talk about this a little bit. So obviously Huineng won the poem because Huineng became the sixth ancestor. We'll get to Huineng in a minute. So the body is the Bodhi tree. So Shinshui is basically saying this body right here is the place of enlightenment. Right here is where it happens, or is happening. The mind is like a bright mirror's stand. So some translations are, the mind is like a bright mirror. And this translation is the mind is like a bright mirror's stand. I'm choosing this one today to point something out, which I think is really neat and subtle. Because often we hear the other one, the mind is like a bright mirror. But the mind is like a bright mirror stand, so imagine a stand with a mirror on it. Right, so some kind of wooden feature with the mirror sitting there. And so this is my interpretation. The human brain, heart, and body function as the host of awareness. So the mirror is awareness. Our awareness mirrors everything clearly, without any interruption, without any hindrance. And then this body is the vehicle that holds this awareness, that is the conduit of awareness. It was a big realization for me at one point when I realized that everything has awareness, that awareness isn't limited to things with brains. When a flower moves to follow the sun, there's awareness happening. When trees grow towards the sky, there's awareness happening. It's just a different vehicle. It's a different conduit than the brain. But this brain is a certain kind of conduit that does certain things with awareness. And so I'm wondering, can you connect with awareness right now? And I actually identify purely with awareness right now, not with me, whatever your name is, with this body, however tall or big or small it is, but just pure awareness. And then feel the stand. Next line is, at all times we must strive to polish it. So in the first translation, we're polishing the mirror, but I chose this translation because awareness can't be polished. Awareness is clear and bright in and of itself. It has no hindrance. The hindrance is the stand. It's the way our brains function. It's all the trappings that we have, all the karma that we have that narrows our awareness or our attention on things that are harmful or not so expansive. So my translation of that is, endlessly and seamlessly we must keep the host clean. So cleaning this daily with mindfulness. This is they're talking about mindfulness here. So with mindfulness, always paying attention to what we're doing, always being aware every move, every word. And especially our karmic patterns, our our behavioral patterns, the ways that we choose distraction over awakeness or mindlessness over mindfulness. And then the last line, and must not let dust collect. So I kind of already said this, so that awareness can flow without hindrance. When awareness flows, compassion flows, loving kindness flows, equanimity and sympathetic joy. So this is what we're up to in Sesshin. Between retreats, we do maintenance practice, daily maintenance practice. But even in our maintenance practice, weeds can grow without us knowing that they're growing. So we come to Sesshin to really focus on practice and pluck those weeds and try to get those weeds from deeper and deeper places in the soil to the point where maybe that weed won't even grow back. So then we take care of those, and then we realize there's a whole nother bed of weeds over here that we didn't even know were there. But that's our practice. We just take care of one weed after another, after another, after another. So keeping that stand clean. So the Buddha continues, hard it is to train the mind, which goes where it likes and does what it wants. An unruly mind suffers and causes suffering, whatever it does. But a well-trained mind brings health and happiness. I don't know about any of y'all, but I have always been interested in training. Like when I was a kid, I used to love to watch Bruce Lee like movies and my favorite and like all the martial arts movies. And my favorite parts of all the martial art movies was usually right in the first. There's like usually an opening scene for a little bit, and then there's this training scene that's like 20 to 30 minutes long, or it's like this little like song montage where there's like songs going and you see him like, Rocky running down the street and, punching the bag and like sweating. And like, I've always been interested in training. And I was definitely a Star Wars kid. Typically on any day I'll have something Star Wars on somewhere. Like I have Star Wars underwear, I have Star Wars socks, I have Star Wars t-shirts, like they were all gifts to me because everybody knows I love Star Wars. So anyway, so one of my favorite scenes is when Luke Skywalker in Empire Strikes Back goes to the Dagobah system and seeks out Yoda. Finds actually brings tears to my eyes. It's so silly, but it had such an impact on me as a kid. And now I have my Yodas over here. But yeah, I love that scene. There's a scene where Luke has Yoda sitting on his shoulders. And he's running around doing flips and stuff, and he's carrying Yoda around. And there's this great relationship between the teacher and the student. So training the mind. So as many of you know, our brains are like roadmaps. So if you can visualize a roadmap, visualize your Google map on your phone, there's big, thick roads, there's little skinny ones, there's medium-sized ones, there's little dotted ones here and there. If you look at a topographic map. And all those neural pathways have been practiced. That's how they are. So neurons go down the big, thick ones, the big highways, very readily, very easily. So for me, that's pizza, sushi, um, fizzy waters, watching climbing videos, um, things like that, driving, talking. And then meditation has become more of that over time, has been a thicker highway. But when I first started meditating, it wasn't even a road. I mean, there was like not even a deer trail to follow. And 5 minutes was excruciating. So over time, I practiced and built that road, right? So training the mind, we're actually recreating our brain. We're redeveloping the way our brain works. Every time you drop a thought and you bring your awareness, your attention back to breath, sound, feeling, sensation, you are strengthening that neural pathway to be in alignment with awareness, momentary awareness, instead of with thinking, which is where most of our attention goes. And that's kind of like how our brains just seem to naturally develop. That's the natural roadmap that seems to get developed. In that natural roadmap of thinking, we can have inner critics, outer critics, the self judgments, the other judgments. We can have very self centered thinking. We can have insecure thinking. I'm so this, I'm not that, I'm not good enough. All these roadmaps, these old roadways. So again, every time you drop that thought and bring the attention back to present moment experience, we are retraining the brain, the mind. The Buddha continues, right meditation is the means of training the mind. As rain seeps through an ill-thatched hut, selfish passion will seep through an untrained mind. Train your mind through meditation. Selfish passions will not enter, and your mind will grow calm and kind. So mind is not just here. Mind is the whole system. The mind is in constant, or the brain is in constant connection with all parts of the body. So in that roadmap that we're recreating a connection of mind and body as well. So initially, when our neural pathways are set up to be with thinking, it really just cuts off the body. There's not a whole lot of awareness here. And as we retrain and retrain and retrain over time, over many sessions, over our daily meditation practice, over years, that connection gets more and more developed to the point where it just connects and it never disconnects again. So let's get on to Huineng's. So anyway, a lot of what I was just talking about was a practice of mindfulness, sati, the seventh of the Noble Eightfold Path. So Master Huineng's poem goes like this. Bodhi originally has no tree. The bright mirror has no stand. Fundamentally, there is not a single thing. Where could dust arise? So this is the poem that Master Huineng won the contest with and became the sixth ancestor in China. He basically takes a brush and just washes or sweeps away Shin Shui's practice of mindfulness with the realization of emptiness. So you might hear this poem like this: no body, no mind, no object of mind, not stained, not pure, with no hindrance in the mind, no hindrance and therefore no fear. Sound familiar? Yeah. right out of the Heart Sutra. So the Heart Sutra is about emptiness. It's pointing towards shunyata, which is emptiness. So that there is a mind, the idea, the concept that there is a mind, that there is a body, there is a thing that needs to be cleaned or kept clean, in and of itself is a dualistic perception of reality, which in and of itself is delusion. So that's why Huineng won the poem, because he's stating the fundamental truth of reality. But it's not that the other poem wasn't useful or important. In fact, to get to the point of realization of this emptiness, we have to use mindfulness. We have to use our practices. And we have to, for most of us, there are some people who have this spontaneous awakening, but for the rest of us mere mortals, we have to put in a lot of effort to pluck those weeds, to let go of those thoughts, and come back to present moment experience over and over and over again. And then even after realization of emptiness, then that first poem is still important, very important. And so Roshi's giving some talks on the 5 ranks right now. And the 5 ranks are both circular. There's 2 sets of ranks, but they're circular and linear, but both of them can actually be seen as circular, as the 10 ox herding pictures can be seen as one long path of our practice in this life and maybe multiple lives, or it can actually be seen as a cycle that we go through. And so we use mindfulness to have some access to emptiness, and then that emptiness informs our mindfulness, and then our mindfulness shifts and matures, and then we have a deeper realization of emptiness, which then informs our mindfulness, and it just keeps going. So I want to get into something very practical that we can use for this retreat. And the question that I want to get into right now is, so how do we experience emptiness? And so I've already talked about mindfulness, but I want to take us somewhere further, which is a practice beyond mindfulness. And there are a lot of different definitions of mindfulness out there. So mindfulness could include what I'm going to talk about, but in the Noble Eightfold Path, there are actually 2 different things. So sati is the 7th of the Noble Eightfold Path, which is mindfulness. Mindfulness is most often taught as being aware of present moment experience. Not necessarily concentrating on one thing, but just being aware of what's arising. You could bring in concentration there. But the Buddha makes a distinction between these 2. So in mindfulness, there's an awareness of present moment arising. And in that, there's an observer and the thing being observed. So there's still a dualistic separation between these 2 things. So if I'm being mindful of something, that means I, or the stand, is being mindful of this other sensation, sound, something, the wind, the breeze on my skin, something like that. And so that mindfulness practice can really bring us into the moment. It can give us a sense of calm and peace, of relaxation, but it doesn't And it can lead to the disillusion of self. But the practice itself isn't necessarily that. So this next practice, which is samadhi, is the dissolution of the two, is the non-dual state of meditation. And it's interesting, if you open the Tricycle Magazine, Lion's Roar, or something like that, you'll probably see mindfulness, the word mindfulness, probably written 200-300 times in one magazine. You might see samadhi once or twice, or maybe a few times. And it's probably in the back because somebody has named their company Samadhi or something. Some advertisement for a thing. So samadhi is ancient. This is before the Buddha. The religions of India, all are the major religions of India: Jainism, Hinduism, Yoga, Buddhism, Hinduism. Maybe I said that. All have samadhi as one of the primary practices. The 8 limbs of yoga by Patanjali, the 8th limb is samadhi. So interesting, the 8 limbs of yoga, Noble Eightfold Path, both of them end with samadhi. Yeah. So, the Buddha was, revolutionary in a certain way, but in another way, there was a lot of wisdom coming out of, and has been for many years, coming out of India. There's only some slight differences in some things, but emptiness being one of the major differences in Buddhism, and especially in Zen. So samadhi, Master Hakuin's Song of Zazen. We chant this once a week here at the Zen Center. Master Hakuin was a Rinzai teacher from the 17th century, born in the 17th century, died in the 18th century, I believe. And a few lines are, the cause of our sorrow is ego delusion. From dark path to dark path we've wandered in darkness. How can we be free from the wheel of samsara? The gateway to freedom is Zazen Samadhi. And then later in the same poem, he says, thus one true samadhi extinguishes evils. It purifies karma, dissolving obstructions. So twice in a 30-line poem, or 30-line song, he emphasizes the word samadhi. So there's some very specific definitions of samadhi and some broad definitions. The specific definition sounds similar to this. There's actually a book named Samadhi, written by Mike Sayama. And he says, from the perspective of training, samadhi is a state of pure and relaxed concentration, which is strengthened and refined by rigorous psychophysical discipline. In samadhi, awareness is clear and unhindered by preconceptions and preferences, and one experiences the interpenetration of all things as emptiness. So awareness is clear and unhindered by preconceptions and preferences. So if you look at definitions, they're usually pointing at these same things. You'll see the words, or basically like a state of mind that is one-pointed in its concentration, clear, relaxed, and unhindered by thoughts, beliefs, and turmoil. So can you imagine that? Maybe you've had that experience before, or many times, for little bits of time or chunks of time. But just this pure clarity. It's that mirror without the stand. Meadow-Moore Roshi, Roshi from Renzai Roshi in Wisconsin writes, samadhi is cultivated in all Zen training. Though there exist many types and depths of this meditative absorption, for our purposes we can describe samadhi generally as a relaxed, sustained stability within which the mind functions freely without fixation or distraction. Unifying the body-mind through various Zen practice methods, If our training is sufficiently rigorous and consistent, we will certainly begin to experience a free-flowing, non-abiding, and concentrated samadhi like this. So a few important points in there. One is sufficiently rigorous and consistent. So samadhi is this thing that gets cultivated. It's actually, I don't want to define it for you. Your experience of samadhi is going to be your experience. It's going to be the one that happens in your system. I can only speak from the experience that I have, and from how I relate to how other people have written about it. And I'll get to that in a minute. But rigorous and consistent. So it's this thing that's it's kind of like this wave that comes into the body as we're meditating one day. We're meditating through the years, and then suddenly this thing starts to kind of like come into the body. Oh, what's that? That's kind of nice. It's really nice, actually. Whoa. And then boom, it goes away. Whoa, don't go away. Where'd you go? And then the more and more we sit, the more that wave just comes in. And then I have realized that when I stop sitting, that wave goes away. So in 2010, I took a little time off from the Zen Center and went out into the world and kind of like tried to see like, what is the world? Who are human beings, and what are they doing out there? I kind of lost touch with it. And so I was meditating, but not daily anymore. And I was meditating every other day, or sometimes once a week or something if I was out in the mountains working. And when I came back to practice a couple years later, it took me about a year or a year and a half for that wave to start coming back of very consistent meditation. And I was still getting a lot out of the meditation, but it really shifted when that samadhi started coming back in. So in Meadow Moore's description, he also used the word absorption. And this is where I want to go with this. This is where we're going to spend the last 10 minutes here. This is really, really important. And the tofu of what we're talking about here. So remember when I said Zen, Ch'an, Dhyana, and jhana. They're all the same word, just different languages. But jhana, so Pali is one of the primary languages that Buddha was passed through the centuries in. And jhana wasn't just concentration, and it wasn't just meditation. It was also often used as absorption. And so the meditation practice that we're talking about is an absorption practice. And there's what's called the 4 jhanas, and they talk about different states of absorption, which we're not going to get fully into. I might touch on it in the 9 minutes I have left. But there's a big difference between mindfulness and absorption. In absorption, think about if you are water and there's this giant sponge right in front of you, and that sponge just comes and sits right on top of you. Where do you go? You just get sucked right up into that sponge. And you can't find the water anymore. You can hold the sponge, and the water's like, you know it's there because your brain knows it's there, but you can hold it and there's no drips coming anywhere. The two things have become one thing. And so our teachers are often encouraging us, be one with it. Oh, you're feeling sad. Be one with that sadness. Experience that completely. Don't hold back. Let go. Become the sadness. Mu. When you're experiencing mu, when you're saying mu in your mind, your whole body becomes mu. It's not you saying mu, it's just mu. Nothing else, nothing separate. Who am I? Who? You just become who. The sound of one hand, one, you just become one. One. When you're counting breaths, there's a big difference I've noticed. I'm doing a lot of breath counting these days. I really like that practice. It's kind of how I ease into the rest of my practice. So every meditation period, I start with a couple minutes of posture and just doing body scans to make sure that my body's relaxed. Then I count breaths. And I count breaths until my mind feels stable enough to move into different practices. And if my mind's not stable, I stay with the breath or with counting. But in counting, there can kind of be this like 1, 2, or it can be 1, 2. And we just absorb right into the number, right into the counting. Or breath. When we breathe, there can be mindfulness of me being mindful of the belly or the hara or something like that, but then we can also become the breath. And I really love Sesshin Roshi's teaching on this and imagining the whole body is breathing. Like it's not imagining, it's feeling the whole body breathing. And the whole body expands and contracts. The whole body is a lung, or the whole body is the breath. There's not something breathing. So this is a body practice, clearly. And a lot of folks can relate to it by thinking about the flow state that everybody here is probably, not probably, everybody here has entered when you play a sport, when you play a video game, when you're cooking, having sex, doing activities that require your full attention and your full beingness to be there. So I love rock climbing, and I know lots of rock climbing addicts, including myself. And the thing that's addictive about rock climbing and sports in general is that you enter this flow state when you're doing the activity. And then it lasts for a little time afterwards. There's kind of a buzz that lasts afterwards, but then it goes away. And then the only way you know how to get back into that state is by doing the activity again. So then we go do it, and we have to keep doing it and do it and do it. So then, I mean, Boulder's full of athletic addicts. I've worked with some in my counseling practice. And so in meditation, we're actually learning to cultivate that flow state on demand. And that flow state can actually become our being. And so the more we meditate over years, and the more we meditate daily, this is one of the reasons why daily practice is so incredibly important. And I don't mean daily practice of 15 minutes, I mean daily practice of an hour or more, is to maintain that samadhi and actually build that samadhi. So that samadhi is actually, we kind of like build it up during meditation in the morning, and then we go into our day and it kind of drifts, fades, and then we build it up again before we go to bed, and then we go into sleep in a samadhi state. And the more we do this over years, that level of samadhi just rises and becomes more and more and more. So that thing that we can feel from other people, like, very, very deeply enlightened beings, what they call in yoga and Hinduism, that darshan experience, are people who are living in this very deep state of samadhi constantly. And people can sit in these. I used to be really fascinated with this stuff. I'm not so fascinated with sort of all the Indian mystics anymore, but I was really into it for a long time. And I read countless stories of, and there was a Chinese master who did this in the US only like 30 years ago as well, who will sit down into meditation and then not get up for 7 to 15 days or more. They don't drink water, they don't eat, they don't poop, they don't pee. The whole body just settles down and goes into this state of very deep, intense samadhi. And so some of the different samadhi states, some of them can be trance-like. So we're in there and we don't even hear anything. Like the bell rings, people were walking by and you didn't even notice. And it actually wasn't because you were distracted and spending on some thoughts. It's actually because you're so absorbed into the sensations of what's happening inside the body. It can, and there can be this dreamy kind of reality experience of it too, where you kind of, when you're drowsy and you feel a little sleepy, that is often for me when this wave of samadhi can just burst into my body and come through and it wakes me up. Or if I'm really sleepy, sometimes I'm really sleepy because I didn't get much sleep that week or that night. And you can actually meditate while you're in this half sleep state. So there's this teaching where we're like, wake up, always stay awake, you know. Most of our teachings are about being one with your experience. So if you're, and one of my greatest teachings that Sesshin Roshi ever gave me was early when I started doing Dokusan with him. I went in, he said, how you doing? And I said, tired. He said, well, just be tired. It was so profound to have this invitation to just feel tired and to realize that it was okay to feel tired. And so since then, I've practiced feeling tired on the cushion. And when I drive and when I, at different times during the day. Sometimes I'm so tired when I'm driving that I actually have to purposely not meditate because I'm so tired that if I actually go into that, I want to go right to sleep. And so I kind of have to like keep myself sort of amped in certain ways, think about something. But so sometimes it's not good. Anyway, for me, these 4 jhanas, moving through the absorption states, for me, it's easier to enter with my eyes closed. So that's where this sort of like dreamy, blissful state can happen. But then the higher states of samadhi, as they're described as this pure clarity, for me, it's like my eyes just pop wide open and they have to be open, like they can't be closed. And this really happens for me usually on day 5 and 6, in the last few days of Sesshin, where my body's rested. I don't feel so sleepy anymore. The samadhi has built up. The spiritual energy of Jiriki is just running around my body. And then suddenly during a meditation period, it's just burst into awareness. And everything's clear and silent. Sometimes it lasts for a whole meditation period. Sometimes it's like 2 minutes. And then I'm like, oh God, I can't wait to get that back after Kinhin. I go sit down and then I'm like, dang it. So it's really, for me, one of those things where it just comes when it wants and it goes when it wants. And I think that's the difference between having a lay life and having a life where you're living in a cave or a monastery. Is in lay life, like we're tired a lot, we're exhausted, we're doing a lot of stuff, and I love it. I love being out in the world. I wouldn't give it up. But I do know that when I was living a more sedentary life in a monastery, or like at the Zen Center full time in the past, my mind was much more luminous, much more awake feeling. So during Sesshin, I'll just wrap it up here in a second. So during Sesshin, our practice is, doing our meditation, and everybody has their own sort of path, your own karmic path and what you're up to. But in general, we're trying to cultivate this samadhi here. And so we're trying to use our practice to develop this absorption state into our bodies, into our experience and dissolve that separation of self and body, that separation of self or mind and sensation, and just become the sensation. So then as we do this through the week, it's important to hold it. Remember that practice that we did as kids? I did it in middle school where you have an egg and you have to like keep it for a week. You're kind of like carrying this fragile egg around for the week, and really working hard not to let that go. So then when you go into Dokusan and you're presenting Mu or whatever you're koan, you're presenting it from the deepest state of samadhi that you have access to in that at that time. That experience of oneness, that experience of unity, unified being. So I'll finish us with just a few quotes here from Swami Rama. He was a very famous yogi who started the Himalayan Institute in New York and was the first place where New York and Pennsylvania, was the first place where I did a group meditation with one of his senior students. I was very impressed. And he was actually the spiritual leader of India. He was deemed the spiritual leader of India. I can't remember what years it was. And then he said, I need to go deep in my practice, actually. He was already had a very deep practice and was recognized for that. And the president of India made him the spiritual leader. And he said, no, I need to go deep in. And he went into a cave for 11 months and didn't come out. He says, when you attain a state of samadhi, what will happen to you? The day you attain a state of samadhi, not only will you stop identifying yourself with the objects of the world, but you will be established in your essential nature. You will become a yogi. Your mind, actions, and speech will be guided by a pure consciousness, and you will no longer commit mistakes. You will not hurt, harm, or injure anyone in any way. You will become more creative, dynamic, and selfless, and you will understand the meaning of life. Once you have attained the highest state of tranquility, you will not be affected within the worldly turmoil and worldly situations. In samadhi, you are constantly aware of the truth. In samadhi, you are fully awake. Samadhi is perfect rest or sleepless sleep. You are fully awake, yet you have the power to go to the deeper state where you can obtain rest exactly as you obtain during sleep. You always want to know how long it will take to attain samadhi. A room that has been dark for many years can be lit up in a second's time. It depends on how intense your desire is. If you are ready and you have a burning desire within, you can enlighten yourself in a second's time. If you have a sincere desire, you can do it. If you are not ready, it will take some time to gather the wick, the oil, and the lamp. But once you have prepared yourself, you can achieve this ultimate goal. Thank you all.